Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm so appreciative of everybody who's here today, and especially you, Linda, for having facilitated and created this amazing space that we share. It's a wonderful experience. So we're going to talk about Venus and Venus retrograde today. And first I want to kind of provide a little bit of background, about Venus herself, and then we'll talk about what it means when Venus is retrograde. So, we live in a universe that's formatted and permeated with duality. Everything in the universe has a positive or a negative charge. And that relationship between positive and negative creates electricity. And when electricity moves, it creates magnetism. And I'm sure that most of you know who are here that the planet Venus correlates to the actual dynamic of magnetism. But given that it also is about this positive and negative charge, which represents the core element principle of relationship itself, then Venus also by correlation is all about relationship. And I believe that it does have this foundation in the science, that it is this electrical magnetic field that is set up, that we are part of, that is in relationship to everything around it. Okay, so what we're looking at both the physical and elemental energetic level is the principle of relationship. So if we look at the mythology, I'd like to break this down a little bit. We know from mythology, from the classical Greek and Roman pantheons, that Venus shared her divinity with numerous male sky gods. But 6,000 years before the Greco-Roman period, the Sumerian and Babylonian cultures worshipped her, her sacred sexuality, her love, her beauty, as a singular fertility goddess who was known as Inanna, Astarte, and Ishtar. And in Egyptian mythology, she was known as Hathor, who was an expression of joy, motherhood, and feminine love. And the Kabbalists embrace her as Netzach, which is beauty. And in tarot, she's the lover's card. So the archetype of Venus, permeates our subconscious. It permeates the mythology, our prehistory, all through human experience since the beginning of time as we know it. Astrologically, she's the ruler of two signs. She's the ruler of Taurus, and she's the ruler of Libra. In Taurus, she's an inner-directed, earthbound, fixed dynamic that really expresses the will to survive. The progression here is, Taurus, second house, is the second sign of the zodiac. So, we come into the material world, we're born, we incarnate in Aries, total instinct, yang, and in Taurus, we have a yin experience where we ask ourselves, how do we stay here? What do we need to survive? What's essential for my survival now that I've landed here? So in order to survive, we have this critical need to identify what's essential in our physical sustenance and for the persistence of life. And this somatic, this body understanding, physical understanding, translates to a psychic understanding, a psychological identification of what's life-sustaining as well. What are the values? What are the priorities? What are the things that are really important to us that we have identified that really correlate to those essential resources that we associate with the sign of Taurus? They translate directly to where we find meaning in our life. What's essential to us becomes what has meaning, what's important, whether it's a person or an idea. It could be a material thing. It becomes money. It becomes beauty. It becomes the love of the natural world around us. But all of these things correlate to Venus and correlate to what really is essential in terms of our own survival, on the planet and in this physical body and emotional body. So if Venus is magnetism, the core, she represents a core magnetic frequency that we emanate, 7 by 24. We have a frequency, and it's an ineffable, invisible influence that just emanates from us. We're not even aware of it in its entirety, if at all. And it's this magnetic frequency which really represents, what is known, the meme that circulates in our culture that I'm kind of not that happy with the way it's been used, is what we call the law of attraction. It's what we attract. It's a persistent energetic emanation, and it's always active. It's always there. There's also a physical side to it, which are known as pheromones. And pheromones are a natural scent that any animal has that it exudes instinctively, that relates to the sexual attraction, to the procreation, to attraction of other members of the same species. And they correlate directly. They reflect the natural polarity of the second house, Taurus, the eighth house, Scorpio, and Pluto. It's our DNA, it's our RNA, and it holds the signatures of Pluto and our evolutionary intentions, and it carries with it as well, in essence, the memories or the imprints of the relationships that we've had in the past. And it's why that we are often attracted to or encounter people time after time. Jeffrey Green said that 90% of the people in our lives we have been with before. And I think that any of us could validate that just in terms of our own experience, whether it's family, lovers, friends, business partners, teachers, anybody who shows up seemingly on schedule, who is important in our life. And when it comes to Venus, we're talking about attraction, obviously a physical sexual attraction, because Venus is about procreation and Taurus is about survival of the species. So in order to do that, we need to relate on that more romantic, or even if it's not romantic, level. So does this all make sense to everybody? Is everybody with me here?
Yes, this is excellent. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. So the other sign, and I guess you know all this stuff. I'm just going through it again because I think it's important. Venus is also the ruler of Libra, and Libra is the yang expression of Venus. It's the outward directed cardinal desire to form relationships with others, because those relationships are, in essence, are a mirror of who we are. And what's significant here is that the core frequency that is based on our self-worth, our self-love, our relationship with ourself, is what we project into all the other relationships in our life. We're either looking for someone to complete us, or hopefully we're looking for someone with whom we can each complete ourselves. And that's basically the spectrum of how relationships play out. None of us, I would say, have unconditional self-love. It's a rare thing to find that. It's mostly what we would call the most ascended souls. People who are at the top layer of a spiritual state. So all of us are somewhere in the middle between self-love and self-hate, and that's what modulates that frequency that we all hold. If we really aren't comfortable in our own skin, if we feel that there's something wrong with us, that we're not really that great at whatever it is that we do, or who we are, or we're somehow incomplete, if we carry, the imprints from early childhood or earlier than that even, of traumas and, things that we have experienced, our magnetic frequency is going to reflect that, and that's what we're going to be broadcasting. So we attract a partner, we attract, whoever it is that is a reflection of that emanation. And, often we're looking for our father, or we're looking for our mother, we're looking to somehow complete ourselves. But it just doesn't work out that way, because what happens is that we generally are going to attract someone who is attracted to the vulnerability, not necessarily to the intention to help us grow. And, the relationship starts out really well. Everything is good. The sex is good. You're having fun. Everybody's happy. But over time, it begins to degenerate, and the real truth will begin to emerge, and we begin to recognize that things aren't really working out the way we thought they would, and it's time to start working on an exit strategy. And I'm sure we have all had this type of experience. Does everybody concur with that? Anybody disagree or agree? And if you want to talk about it later, we can come back and examine some of those. But this is the general mechanism that happens. And over time, we learn, hopefully, that the relationship we're looking for is not the one where somebody's going to complete us, but what I said a few minutes ago, where we will have the space for both of us to complete ourselves in that space. Relationships, people grow at different times in relationship. It's a game of leapfrog. One partner grows and leaps over the other, and then the other partner grows and plays catch up and leaps over them. And so the successful relationships are where we can navigate those liminal threshold times where each of us is changing, and opening the space for us to support the other and allow them to change, and to be able to accept them for who they are, just as we need to accept ourselves for who we are through the entire process. Does this make sense? Is this kind of everybody on this page with how this has been explained through EA?
Yes, this makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the seventh house is more than just relationship. The seventh house is also the phenomenal world. It is the gateway, the threshold into our outer world, our social sphere. So we're not just attracting people, we're attracting circumstances. Everything that comes to us really comes through that polarity of the first and seventh house of what we're instinctually reaching out to achieve, and what it is that's coming back to us in terms of, is this something that we need, or is this, some collateral exchange where we're trying to fulfill somebody else's needs. But the seventh house is the house of manifestation. And, we can't, fall into the trap of saying, that somehow it's, we're the victim of these things, and why do I keep attracting these people? Why do I keep attracting these circumstances? We have a subconscious and we have a conscious, and we all know, in this room that the subconscious is Pluto. It's our soul intentions. It's what we've brought with us in terms of lessons and what we need to grow. And then we have an ego. We have a habitual way of responding and reacting based on what's familiar and what feels safe. And they're not always in agreement. There's often a discrepancy between what the ego is going to be pursuing and what the soul has laid out for us in terms of the greater life plan. And when that discrepancy exists, what happens is that in our seventh house, in that outer world, the circumstances and people show up to help us balance what is out of balance. To help us resolve that discrepancy between the two, between what the soul is hoping to achieve and what the ego has been consciously pursuing. So that's really the way that polarity can work, and it's it's what we encounter that are our challenges. That's how our lessons show up. We actually generate those circumstances so that we can see them. So. We need others to lay out our squares and oppositions. We can't really do it by ourselves. It's why we have other people in our world, in our life. Okay, so again, does anybody have a comment? Does this make sense, or anybody would like to add anything here? Comments? Nothing. Okay, good.
Makes total sense, and I can, in hindsight, I can see people showing up to balance. I love that, to balance what's to help resolve what's out of balance.
Right. Well, the other side of the coin. Thank you. The other side of the coin, Sue, is that we have also written the script. because, in the bardo, in the space between lives, when we move through that again, that liminal space, we set up, what's going to come after based on what has come before. And that's why people and these circumstances show up on schedule, almost as if, it's the calendar unfolding. And, it may seem like it's, predestination or it's fate. It's not, because we wrote that script. It was our choice. It was our intentions as to how these things would unfold. There is free will, but the free will, besides the fact that, it was our higher self, the part of us that exists outside of time and space, that set this up. The free will is that when these situations and people show up, it's how we respond to it that really makes the difference. We can't make the circumstance not happen. We can't make the people go away, but we can change the way that we respond, whether we respond proactively or we respond reactively. It makes all the difference. And so again, that's another dynamic here that's at work. And, it's especially true because we're going to be talking about Venus and Aries, which implies, that Libra is also on the field of play. So we have really had a wonderful couple of months. Any of us who've, paid attention to the sky, we've had Venus as the evening star, is the bringer of light in the evening sky. She was known as Hesperos. And it really is. It was beautiful. She was very, very brilliant for quite a long time. She's still out there, but it's really been a beautiful experience to look up at the sky and see Venus, and Mars was nearby, and the moon, and then look at the chart, which is just a flat drawing of it, and correlate the two, and all of a sudden the chart has a third dimension to it. Of reality, of that we really are connecting Earth and sky, Uranus and Gaia, are conjoining, that are mating, if you would, through us, to be able to understand and experience all the things that we are experiencing. So every 18 months or so, Venus reverses direction symbolically from our geocentric perspective. Venus retrogrades less than any other planet, only every 542 days or so. And the retrograde cycles can be described using all of the re words, and any of the words that start with re. The retrograde cycle reflects or correlates to the lunar cycle of animation and withdrawal, where we need time to step back and to assess and review and renew and re-examine, reprocess, retreat, reflect what the experiences that we've had during the forward motion, the direct motion of any of the planets. But with Venus, what we're looking at is, we're looking at relationships, obviously. We're looking at primarily, first and foremost, a relationship with ourselves, and I think that's the theme that's on the table here with Venus and Aries. We're looking at, I'm in a relationship, whether it's my lover or my work or myself. Am I having the experience in that relationship that I need? Am I getting what I need for my essential survival? Is this relationship supplying what really is important and meaningful for me? And I think that it's interesting that everybody pretty much, especially here in Santa Fe, it's a meme that Mercury retrograde. Even people who don't know anything about astrology, always know when Mercury's retrograde. But Venus retrograde, is kind of much less visible. It's not on the map. And I think it's much harder to deal with in some ways than Mercury retrograde, because we don't know what's happening in a lot of cases. We do. We're aware of it, But even though we're aware of it, it can be difficult. Our relationships flare up, and our partners start to get a little antsy or anxious, or all of a sudden the resentments, the things that they haven't been happy about. You didn't put down the toilet seat, you didn't clean up your dishes, and the little things seem to begin to pile up. And hopefully, it's just a lot of little things. We don't come down to the major issues that basically we don't in a relationship that just totally doesn't work. It's mostly about a reorganization, a reviewing, and it's really a critical, important time, because the relationships have to grow just like the individuals in the relationship have to grow. We have to have some objectivity. Retrogrades are an Aquarian archetype in that respect, where we and see things hopefully through different eyes or with a different perspective, maybe see them more intuitively rather than rationally, and more right brain than left brain. And when we do that, we're able to make some adjustments. We're able to not know what's real anymore. We're not necessarily know what is, and to be able to allow a little bit of chaos to come in, because that chaos and confusion can be a very healthy state, where we can learn something new. When we think we know something, there's no room to learn anything new. We're done. It's a done deal. We give it a name, and once it's named, it's fait accompli. It's concrete. It's set in stone. Saturn owns it. So we have the opportunity to step back and to re-examine it. And so this is what comes up in these Venus retrogrades. And like I say, I think it's very important to keep working at it, because relationships need work. There's no Romeo and Juliet relationship. It doesn't happen. I don't care if it's your high school sweetheart. If after 35 or 40 years of marriage you have not really talked about what's important, you're not in the same place you were when you were in high school in terms of how you feel about each other. It needs constant work. We have to pay attention to it. If we don't, we're cheating ourselves, and we're cheating our partners. So this is the underbelly. It comes back to the Taurus side of the equation, because we have to really examine our own self-worth and our own relationship with ourselves, because again, this is the determinant of the basis of all those other relationships. And Louise Hay House Books tells a very famous story. She has written many books about self-love, but she says, I didn't always love myself. She stood in front of a mirror every morning, and she looked in that mirror, and she said, "I love you, I love you," and until she finally believed it, until she reprogrammed herself. I think Jeffrey used to talk about the pineal gland, holding some actually crystalline structure. We're like computers. We can program ourselves just like we program our computer, or we program a quartz crystal to hold, some emanation for us. We have to reprogram who we are. We have to, because we've drifted off course. We need to reset our compass, our internal spiritual compass, so that we're headed back on track to where we want to be. And the center of that compass is ourselves. It's not an accident that astrologically we stand at the center of the universe. Obviously, that can be a two-edged sword, because some people, unfortunately, come to the belief in that place that they are the center of the universe, and we know that we're not, hopefully. But symbolically, we are, and everything that's around us emanates from us. That outer world that we wake up to every morning. When we wake up from a dream, is the reflection, is the projection of our inner state. And when our inner state changes, when our inner world changes, the outer world changes in the blink of an eye. And I think that's important to remember, that time in essence is an illusion. There's this stuff that people talk about manifestation, and how long does it take you to manifest something? Well, you can do it in an instant, just by changing how you feel about, we feel about ourselves, and how we feel about the intentions that we have, that, we don't have one foot on the gas pedal and the other foot on the brake, and actually are moving ahead, in a clearer frame of mind, where our energies are very, directed and concentrated, without distraction or distortion. So, we're taking personal inventory, and that inventory is important because, again, we're measuring our spiritual worth, our self-worth, our financial worth. Sometimes it comes down to, bare necessities too, or, why don't I have enough love, or whatever. It's not that there's always a simple answer to that, and often the answer is obviously a little bit more complicated than simply re-intending to do that. But these are the things that come up. Okay, right. So in terms of current mechanics, Venus turned retrograde on the 4th. I think you all know that, at 13 degrees of Aries, and she's going to retrace her steps all the way back, just about to 27 degrees of Pisces. I think it's 26:54 minutes of Pisces. So Aries is concerned with that instinctual self. It's our basic instinct to be. We don't really think about coming into the world, at least consciously. We're born head first, eyes open. We don't even know if somebody will be there to catch us before we hit the ground. That's the way we come in. It almost happened with one of my children, as a matter of fact. The doctor walked into the operating room just in time to catch her. So that's why I say that, because I literally experienced it, not for myself, but in my family. So Venus's retrograde through Aries is going to highlight how our own essential needs are being met, and where we have forfeited our needs in order to keep the relationship alive, or to provide what another is needed. One of the distortions of Libra is that Librans often sacrifice themselves, not in a Pisces way, but in a way of just neglecting their own personal needs, their own essential needs, in terms of, mothers often do it with their children. They live their entire life for the children, and then the children grow up, leave home, and they ask themselves, who am I? What's happened to me over the past 20 years? I need to get back to who I was, and obviously it's a very difficult transition to do. As she revisits Pisces, we're going to be provided with the compassion and the understanding, and the forgiveness for ourselves and for others for whatever has happened. So I think that this is a really interesting transit, and it just holds so much potential in terms of growth and fulfillment, to really utilize it. And it's going to be there, but we have to work with it. It's not going to happen by itself. The retrogression into Pisces, unheeded, could be somebody who really feels lost, somebody who just feels like, it's all just slipping away, and what happened. So we need to take charge. There's I guess I'm jumping ahead, but there's a very strong aspect to Saturn and Sag. So we need to take responsibility. There's also a Pluto Capricorn square. We need to be responsible. We need to accept the responsibility for where we are, without blaming ourselves, without blaming somebody else, and saying, okay, this is what it is. It happened. How can I fix it? And I truly believe that the solution is always in the issue. If we allow our intuition to allow that issue to unfold and its awareness come to us. If we approach it with the non-rational mind, if you would, not the rational mind that thinks it knows everything, but the mind, the part of us that really accepts that it maybe doesn't know, and to find the answers, because the answer to any problem is in the problem itself. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? You can just shake your head.
Yes,
it's okay.
That makes total sense.
Okay. So During this transit, this retrograde, she's going to join up with two of her old flames. She's going to join up with Mercury Hermes and reunite some of the alchemy between them. And I would suggest that in this transit, it perfects on the 14th. So I would suggest that maybe somebody from the past is going to show up, a flame, a partner, an old friend. It doesn't necessarily have to be difficult. What's been happening with me that's really interesting is, with all this Pisces energy in the sky right now, I've been having dreams about people who I haven't seen in a long time. I had a dream about my dad last night. I had a dream about my son the other night. I had a dream about a friend who I haven't seen or really been close to in 15 or 20 years. So, this is really active. And if they don't show up in your physical world, they're very likely to show up in your dream time, in your subconscious. And we can work with it the same either way. Whatever needs to be resolved, we can forgive them, we can bless them, we can send them our love, and we don't have to do anything more than that. It's enough, because that energy goes out and it travels great distances. I'm trying to read Linda's message, but I'm not sure. Linda?
That's okay, Daniel. No, it was a message to the gang to just have some questions ready.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question? You said
Please.
Venus
Please.
perfects on the 14th. What does that mean?
She's let me look at my transits here. She perfects to Mercury.
Oh, to Mercury. Okay, thanks, Daniel. I get it.
She conjoins Mercury.
Yes.
Yeah. She's conjunct Mercury. Actually, it's on the 18th.
On the 18th. Okay, great.
18th at 9 degrees of Aries.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And she also is going to join up with Mars, who we know, historically is her legendary lover on April 1st. I better check the date on that so I don't get that one wrong too. March 29th, April 1st, depending on what hemisphere you're in. Venus is going to conjoin. Is that right? Excuse me, it's a semi-sextile. That's what I'm not seeing. I'm working at ballistic conjunctions here. It's a balsamic semi-sextile. So that's a perfect opportunity to work on these things that have not found resolution. All of the things that are hanging fire, so to speak, the loose ends, the things that we have not resolved with our friends, lovers, partners, family, whoever. The semi-square is going to present the opportunity through circumstances for these things to come out in the open, to be exposed. And it doesn't have to be a crisis. It doesn't have to be difficult. We just have to be open to it. And we have to allow it, allow ourselves to move through that space and work with it. Because we know that these squares and semi-squares and inconjuncts are powerful energies to realign, to reset our internal compass and to head back in the direction that we've originally intended to go. And she forms a last quarter square to Saturn and Sag, who's also retrograde. So it's a double retrograde event. And again, this is a crisis in consciousness that's going to awaken some inconvenient truths. We're going to have to face some things that perhaps we haven't wanted to face, or maybe we're already facing them. So again, it's essential to take responsibility, to find a centered place of lucid observation and awareness, in order to realize that the solutions, as I said, are already present in the undercurrent of the issues. They're there. We just have to allow those issues to be open to what's really happening, and allow our intuition intuition to come through, and the solution will be there. We'll find it. These things are meant to be healed. They're not meant to go on, the wounding or the hurting or the resentments or whatever it is. It's not meant to happen. That's a distortion. But they occur so that we can see it and work with it. So about 10 days later, on the 4th, Venus is going to begin to, no, I don't think that date's right. Yeah, on the 4th, after she passes through, I think I missed the superior conjunction here. Hang on.
Daniel, I think the superior conjunction takes place on the 25th.
Yes. Yes, on the 25th, right. On the 25th of March, we have the superior conjunction. So this is the beginning of a new Sun-Venus cycle. It's also an Earth-Venus cycle. So, a new 2-year cycle, solar cycle is beginning with Venus. And, Venus, when Venus is moves between the sun and Earth, she absorbs all that solar energy. And that solar energy is life force. That comes to us directly from the center of the universe, from the center of the source of all that is. So again, we can be renewed, we can be reinvigorated, we can find a whole new energetic place to act from, so that we don't have to repeat the same patterns. We can let go of some of the old stuff and allow this new solar energy to be saturated with it, and feel this energy, and actually allow it to move us, and move us into a new chapter of relationship patterns that the sun is trying to initiate. So as I said, about 10 days later, Venus will then emerge from behind the sun, and we will have Venus Phosphorus, or the bringer of the dawn. We'll have the morning star, which will be visible for a short time at sunrise. At dawn, the evening star stays visible all night, because once the sun goes down, the reflection of his light on Venus, persists. But during the day, the morning star, as soon as the sun comes up, Venus is ahead of the sun. Then we can no longer see her. And she will have her brightest brilliance from April 15th through May 14th, and actually greatest brilliance on April 30th. So she in the middle of this, she will station direct on the 15th and start to retrace her steps. So when she moves back through her shadow, she's going to re-encounter Mars. She's going to she won't re-encounter Mercury, but she will re-encounter Mars. And so we have the opportunity at the second pass, as she comes up through these planets again, to really work out what has been going on. Through the retrograde, we have the time to think about it and work on it and examine it. And as she moves through her shadow, then we can actually begin to resolve it and take some action, and work with it, and actually make this a really fulfilling Venus retrograde, because we were able to get some work done. So the question we really need to ask ourselves, we talked about Venus being conditional of, I love you if. Pisces is that unconditional love. Pisces is unconditional because it includes everything. It doesn't exclude anything in its boundaryless realm. So we need to ask ourselves, are we putting conditions on our relationships, and are the relationships in trouble because of those conditions, because of an expectation that we might have that is going unfulfilled? And is that an expectation that is just something that our ego is requesting, or is that an expectation that our soul has? And based on the answers that we get, we will know where we need to go in terms of the relationship. I would suggest that in most cases, it's going to be an ego distortion. The discrepancy, it's just going to be something that, for whatever reason, irks us or we're not happy with. But we need to recognize that if we're in a relationship where we're staying in that relationship because of some reason, is it because is it because somehow your dad gave me a job, or or we're just having too much fun, but the rest of the time it's not so great. I'm having trouble coming up with an example, but I think you know what I mean. We need to recognize if there's something conditional that's holding us in, and to let go of those conditions. If we really love somebody, that love has to be unconditional, and we accept them for who they are, just as we need to accept ourselves for who we are, without any conditions being placed on it. And Neptune, Pisces, is going to give us that ability. The facility will be there, but we need to call upon Neptune. We need to call upon Venus to recognize it. Some of the mythology that I didn't talk about is that Venus is full of vanity and pride. We can read all the stories, the way she treated Psyche, her relationship with Adonis. All of these, the mythology shows us that Venus, as a goddess, also had her own karmic load, if you would, of I don't know if it was karmic, but she had her own load of distortions. And we need to recognize that in ourselves and in the relationships, and to heal them, and to let them go, and just find that place where, I think I said that we can love each other and love ourselves the same way that we love our pets. We love our pets unconditionally, no matter what they do. We're happy to see them. They greet us at the door, hopefully, when we come home. They can do no wrong. And we need to have that same feeling with the human people in our lives as well, not just the four-legged people, four-legged creatures. We need to feel that same tremendous potential for healing in our relationships. And it exists. We have it. The potentials are here. The Aries Libra polarity, the retrogression into Pisces, it's all laid out for us. We just need to step through it, and step through it consciously, with awareness, and coming from a place of observation and detachment and love, and it all works out. This is pretty much what I've got for you.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Daniel. Can we now ask you some questions, or just make some comments?
Please.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Venus started her retrograde squaring Pluto, and we're needing to use a pretty big orb for Pluto, but I think it still applies. I'm really feeling the Plutonian aspect of this retrograde, and it has not been pretty. It's been like releasing really deep issues around money and friendship, and oh gosh, it's just been really difficult. So what would you have to say about Venus's connection to Pluto, in this case, Pluto in Capricorn?
Well, again, I think we're coming up against, what our soul is anticipating, or is expecting, and what our ego is expecting. I think that we're looking at a Capricorn Aries square, and I think that it really comes down to, rather than being instinctive about everything, taking responsibility and recognizing that we are creating our own reality. Saturn is that reality, that somehow we may feel that we're tied in, or trapped, or stuck in this reality that exists around us. But in essence, it's not real. It is real. It's very tangible, and it's very crystallized, but it can be fluid. And we have to recognize that Pluto has the ability to overcome whatever those Saturnian limitations are. And I think we have to examine each of the issues in each of the set of circumstances where we seem to be running into a wall. And I believe that the solution is contained in the issue, in the situation. But we have to meditate on it, allow our intuition to work with it, look at it, try and come at it from a different perspective somehow. Try and look at it. Use the Pisces portion of this transit to dissolve it, to kind of break it up a little bit, so that it doesn't feel so stiff and immovable and difficult, and find within it where there is a fluidity, and where there is where there's release, where there is it'll take us.
Yes, thanks, Daniel. I feel that Venus's connection to Pluto is going into some very deep territory here, because, you know, Venus can represent money, and Pluto in Capricorn represents a high standard of conduct, and, you know, anything immoral or corrupt is going to be targeted. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's that easy, you know, for some people going through these particular issues. And so, yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Money, Linda, money is just energy. We have put so much emphasis on money that we think it's this, again, we think it's, this really solid, immovable thing, and it's not. When we clench up, when we freeze up about money, we stop the flow, because it is just an energy flow. It just comes through us. It comes to us through that seventh house phenomenon, dynamic. And when we tense up and when we clench over it, we restrict the flow. Sometimes, I think we all go through it. I certainly as astrologers, I caution anybody who has the intention of becoming an astrologer. I warn them that it's not any kind of get rich quick scheme. There's going to be times where they're going to maybe struggle a little bit with the money, but one of the things that I do is that sometimes when I'm afraid, and afraid is the word, it's fear that I don't have enough, I'll go out and I'll spend a little bit, because just the act of doing that, I'm telling the universe, no, I'm not afraid. I'm going to open up that valve. I'm going to turn the valve open again, instead of trying to twist it shut and let it kind of be all jammed up.
Yeah, you've made some really good points there. That's really good. I'm also looking at the tendency to be very impulsive around, making decisions around money, perhaps. And also, Saturn's in Sag, and I think you were referring to the square from Saturn to Venus when she goes back into Pisces.
Right. She was just moving out of orb when she went retrograde, and
right.
she will be out of orb most of the time. But the square to Saturn, from my perspective, really picks up the ball and runs with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, like Saturn in Sag, I mean, that to me references honesty and truth and, good conduct. And I'm
Right.
just going a bit deeper here.
But it's also our beliefs, and we are what we believe. And we have very, very, culturally, I'm sure Australia is not that much different than the United States. We have, we're embedded with, this whole, what's the word? It's almost dogmatic about beliefs about money. And so, with Saturn and Sag moving retrograde, I think it's asking us to recognize that maybe some of the beliefs that we have are too entrenched, that maybe it's not, that belief isn't real. Something that we believe, it's something that we think. When we talk about Sag and Gemini, a lot of it is, what we think. And we shouldn't always believe what we think.
Absolutely. And, some of our beliefs around money are just illusions as well. This is the point I'm trying to make. And this affects our relationships, and our friendships. So, like, what are we putting out there? What reality are our beliefs creating? And I mean, this has been a huge issue for me. This is why I'm bringing it up. But look, we've got a question here from Robin. And Robin, I'll just unmute you. Would you like to ask your question?
I would love to. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Robin.
Hello. Thank you so much for this. I'm so sorry I came in late. I totally forgot about it. It's my first Zoom meeting. And thank you for having me.
Don't beat yourself up. We're happy that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. My question is that, I've been going through an extremely, extremely rough time in the last year. So I'm particularly curious about this Venus retrograde in that it's going to go direct on my personal moon, which is at 27 degrees Pisces in the 11th house. So I was just curious, I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around the fact that it's, going direct right on my moon. And I was wondering if you could comment on that, please.
Sure. without knowing
Right.
all the things in your chart, just speak to the moon in the 11th house. Planets that are in the 11th house are there to be deconditioned. And
Mm-hmm.
the moons are self-image. It's our habitual way of responding, and it's what we're holding on to because it feels safe. So I suspect that the circumstances that you're encountering are things that are obviously making you feel less secure. But I would suggest that that's happening so that you can kind of let go of that insecurity of whatever it is. It may be that it's time for that to change, for you to let go of whatever it is that you're stressing over, and to make room for what it is that Uranus is trying to bring in.
Right. I mean, is there a particular significance with the Venus going direct right on the moon, would you say?
I would say that it's going to give you a tremendous potential to revisit how you see yourself.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. To believe in myself again.
Right, right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
So any other questions?
Yes, hello. This is a very, very good lecture. I really learned a lot. You mentioned at the beginning of your lecture that relationship, like that it was about completing ourselves and not, trying to complete each other. And I figured that was the first time I heard it put this way, but it makes so much sense.
Right.
Like I guess it's because we, the generation of Neptune in Libra, have been conditioned to feed each other, to fill each other need, as opposed to fill our own need and then, be able to share it with the other, with the partner. And it's strange because that Venus retrograde, I have the North Node in Aries at the beginning of Aries. And yes, this is exactly what has been on my mind. I could never have put it in word like that, but it's resonate very, very much. And I did also feel the very Plutonian nature of that Venus retrograde, also about the money and about the transformation that is happening. So yes, I really like this mention also of the seventh house, that it is the house of manifestation. This is another thing that I've never really considered, but I just finished a transit of Pluto in the seventh house, and God, like all the manifestation I had in my life. I mean, actually, this is when I start to join EA, and learn about evolutionary astrology and Jeff Green and the whole thing. So yeah, it has opened a totally new world to me. It has changed my perspective on life. So thank you very much.
No, that's great, Marie. Thank you for the comments. Thank you, and thank you for the how you're feeling about this. When we come to terms with ourselves, all of a sudden, again, I say in the blink of an eye, le clin d'oeil, we instantly will attract somebody else. They'll show up on the doorstep by default. You don't even have to go look for them. They will find you because you have sent that invisible beacon to let them know where you are. And again, the key is within us. It's not in that seventh house. It's in the second house. It's within ourselves. And when we can turn that corner and just allow ourselves to be who we are, just as we are, and accept ourselves for, assuming, we're not murderers or rapists or, whatever. I mean, we're just people having, normal experiences, and sometimes they go well and sometimes they don't work out that well. But we have to let go of the outcome of what's happened, and we have to also let go of the letting go of the outcome of anything that we intend to do. We have to let it unfold and let its meaning unfold for us without any condition or any preconceived ideas of what it's going to be. But when we forgive ourselves, and when we recognize that we are complete in our, we live in a perfectly imperfect world. I mean, this is a soul school. It's perfectly imperfect. when we accept those imperfections within ourselves, then we will attract someone else by default who also will be comfortable with our imperfections because they're comfortable with their own.
That's wonderful, Daniel. Thank you so much. Any final comments or questions? And then we'll have to wind the meeting down.
I love that last comment about being comfortable with imperfections. I'm just a little younger, I think, than Marie, and my North Node is in Pisces, so it's going to, right at the end of Pisces, so it's going to go back to that. And I'm definitely think I'm learning more about unconditional love and especially of myself, and that it's so hard with I have Saturn and Virgo conjunct the South Node, so
There you go. Yeah.
I'm so critical of myself and other people. So
I have Virgo rising.
yeah.
So, and I mean, it's been one of the hardest lessons for me. And I, recently I have, I've tried, the Enso, the Zen circle that's never closed. I've accepted, to be an Enso, that there's part of me that's just not complete, that's not perfect. When I'm writing or, if I'm doing anything, I'm a perfectionist. And it's been hard for me to let go of that and recognize that nothing is perfect. And I've actually let some things just go out there that I knew were imperfect just to do that, to be able to accomplish, being okay with a misspelled word or something, and not be so consumed that everything has to be, perfect.
Yeah, it's hard.
Daniel,
Thank
we have
you.
we have one final question from Robin. Robin, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I know you want to end the meeting. I was just wondering if you could speak quickly to the essential needs formula that you kind of referenced between the 2nd, 7th, and just kind of bringing it all together, 2nd, 7th, and 12th.
Well, there is a relationship. You're talking about in the relationships themselves, what we're expecting from other people.
Right. Are you familiar with I think I'm just trying to get it clear in my mind. It's been a while since I've studied it. The 2nd, of course, being our values and our own needs, and the 7th, of course, the needs perhaps we project onto others, and then the 12th house, which I guess is I'm just, that's where I sort of get lost, is between the 7th and the 12th.
Well, the 12th house is Pisces, and it's it's the ultimate meaning that we're seeking in our lives. But the 12th house, the problem that happens in the 12th house is that we put our partners up on a pedestal. We see their ideal self. We see them in some ideal state, and none of us lives in an ideal state, or very few of us. So we're setting up this disappointment that has to happen, that somewhere that person or us, if they're putting us on the pedestal, is going to fall down off that pedestal. And again, it's accepting each of us exactly as we are. The 2nd house, is really the what is essential to us and what we need, and the 7th house is what you had it right. We project those essential needs out into the 7th house and hoping that they will come back. But the 12th house is really where the delusional stuff can happen, where we want that ultimate meaning, we're looking for that perfection, and it doesn't exist. Right. It really doesn't exist. We have to let go of it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you,
Robin. Okay. Simon did a talk on that last week. So
okay.
So if you look at the group, the YouTube, Linda posts them all the time. She can.
And I think that Jeffrey spent a lot of time talking about it in Pluto Volume 2.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone, and thank you so much, Daniel. That was absolutely brilliant, and we're looking forward to seeing you again at our Zoom meetings. So I'll just unmute everyone. We can say thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste.